Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I am so glad to have you guys joining us today on this webinar. I'm actually really excited about this webinar because we're doing kind of a year in review of what's gone on over the last year, but we're also talking, and I think this is where people are much more excited. Giancarlo, you know this, right? People are much more excited about the monitoring dashboard, the custom drivers, and really some of the more insight that we're giving into the systems that you guys monitor each and every day. Before I go into the actual meat of it, I always like to start out and talk about this, right? This is a live webinar. You can see Giancarlo and I here. We've decided to present our faces today, so that's exciting. We do expect questions to come up. We expect comments to come up. Take advantage of that GoToWebinar control panel, right? Send questions there. And you guys know this, but as always, please email support@domotz.com. Our guys on the other side of that are doing awesome and they respond quickly. And if there are things that you see, maybe feature requests that you see out of this, or you get new ideas about things that we could do maybe to help you, by all means, send it to us. Giancarlo and myself, we watch those, the tickets that get created at support, and we're always putting that into our, whether it's our backlog or into our feature request page. So that being said, Giancarlo and I are super excited to talk to you today about all the things that have gone over the last 12 months. We've got a lot of integrations that have happened. We've got security stuff that has happened. I mean, I'm mostly excited about the SOC 2 compliance that we've gotten. That's one thing that I think a lot of people appreciate. But then you're going to see us dive into a lot more detail when it comes to the data that comes from the devices that we monitor, whether it's through things like WinRM and the Windows machine, or into getting into SSH and into Linux and understanding what's going on in the OS. And then when you see some of the things we've done with SNMP, I think you're just going to be really excited if you haven't seen those things yet. Giancarlo is then going to go into demos about with our custom monitoring tables and even the custom plugins. I think a lot of people may be confused about what these custom plugins are. We're going to give you some insight into that and how it can be used. And then we'll talk about how that's going to continue to progress over the future. And then, yes, a new look is coming. We're focused on faster navigation. We're focused on faster response times. We're really trying to get the data that we've had so many people talk to us about at your fingertips faster. And some of the changes that we have coming, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the future here, what's coming up in the next few quarters, but it's going to be really good. Giancarlo, any other thoughts you want to say about this before we get started?
Yeah, that's the most exciting thing. So we are super excited to deliver, so actually to present what we have delivered in the last 12 months, but we are even more excited to talk about the future and what's coming next. And when I say next, I really mean the next few weeks, next few months in some cases. So very good.
Yeah, there's no doubt that our development team has done an amazing job of cranking things out. And so let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about the direction that we've gone. You know, I have to say we've all been going through this pandemic. We all have opinions about it, but the reality is that our team hasn't stopped because of it. One of the things that we've done over the last 2 years is really redirected our focus into how we can become a better tool for service providers, regardless of which industry you're in, right? If you're in the managed service provider space, if you're in IT departments and dealing with networks, or you're dealing with the commercial integration side, the reality is that we have made our tool much more efficient, and we've made it so that it really does a great job of network diagnostics and network management in general. What we have seen and what we've been able to do with the way we discover devices is really cater this tool into asset management and documentation. You know, and look, we're not going to claim to be a documentation tool, but what we do really well is we can discover the devices that are on the network, we can classify those devices, and then we can import those into the documentation tools that you use, even if it's Excel, right? So that's something that I think is really, really exciting, and that we've seen a shift on how people use us. But then on the other side, there's the security and awareness side. One of the things that we've discovered and how people are using us is for things like NIST compliance, ISO compliance, SOC compliance. Being able to use Domotz as a tool to not only manage the network, but also monitor the network, knowing what's on the network, knowing what ports on devices are open that may be creating vulnerabilities is something that we've seen people using us more and more for. And that has been a drastic change in our thinking over the last couple of years, and we've started to migrate and shift the tool set to achieve that. I mean, Giancarlo, you often watch the support lines. Are you getting similar feedback? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, there are definitely good feedback on support. I usually say the following thing. No, my perception is that out of 10 users that got an issue or something to say, probably 2 or 3 provide feedback, and those feedback so far has been good. But I really invite everybody listening to this webinar today to contact our support if you have doubt about how to use something, or if you're struggling with a feature. Don't hesitate to contact support. I mean, it's very annoying. From my point of view, from a user point of view, if I have an issue with something and I cannot resolve by myself, I get frustrated, and I get this frustration against the tool I'm using. It's easy to contact support and resolve an issue. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. Please use support. In fact, this reminds me, Giancarlo, we've got a lot that we're talking about. I want everybody to know that this is being recorded. We often get that question. So this is definitely being recorded. You'll be able to watch us. I do expect that we're going to go a little bit longer than the hour, and I apologize for that, but it's because we have so many great things that we're talking about. So let's talk about some of the things we've done over the last 12 months, right? We've really placed an emphasis on integrations, right? How do we know, and while we love our dashboard and while we think it's great and easy to use, we know that a lot of times it's the PSA tool, it's the ticketing system that your support team uses in order to be proactive with your customers. That's where things get logged, that's where things get managed. Domotz has done a lot of work to integrate any sort of network issue, device issue that pops up on the network into those tools. So that way, you know, the tool that you're using every day actually gets that ticket created by Domotz. The cool thing, of course, is how we have taken and added value inside those tickets, being able to create links back into the Domotz platform, being able to show historical views of or tickets that have been opened by that particular device or system in the past. That's some of the cool integrations that we've done. The fact that our shared alert system has the ability to not only do a ticketing system, but also a messaging system at the same time, or even an email or even webhooks all in one time, I think is really, really cool. And it's really, really value add for what the team has done. Giancarlo, what's your thoughts on the closure of tickets? That's something that we've gotten a lot of requests on, right?
Yeah, absolutely, GB. We started by allowing the users to automatically open the ticket when something happens on Domotz in their ticketing system. And that's actually the default behavior we still have with most of the ticketing system we rely on. Just because from our experience, it was annoying to have a mechanism in place that just open the ticket and then close if there is a fluctuation of status of device. But we got the request and we delivered the result. Of having Domotz automatically close the ticket when the status of device goes back online. So when an issue is resolved, we automatically close the ticket. We do that on a few ticketing systems. We will bring more and more in all the other ticketing systems that we integrate with.
Yeah, and I think that's really value add for especially for the systems that may go up and down repeatedly, you know about, but you still want to watch and track it. Speaking of tracking, right, documentation systems has been a really important integration that we've had, and it really gets back to that network asset management. A lot of documentation systems work really well in understanding endpoints. When I say that, I mean PCs, servers, and laptops. But more and more people are needing to document what's going on in the conference rooms, right? These other systems that are being used for unified communications. Being able to understand what's the status of voice over IP systems, security cameras, security systems in general, right? Anything that was affecting the network, you should be able to document that and understand what its current state is. Whether it's an important device or not, right? You should do that. The integration and the way people can now pull in information from Domotz into these documentation systems, really awesome. And I also think some of the two-way synchronization that we've done with services like IT Glue has just been spot on. Right, being able to say, okay, who's the master of this information, who's the parent-child relationship of which points within the system is just awesome. So I applaud us for how we did that. So let me move on to this. right? One of the things that and I mentioned this early on, but security, right? For us, we've really placed a lot of emphasis on security, not only our own security within Domotz, which is really achieved through this process of SOC 2 compliance, but also making sure that you enable your teams and your clients to be secure through things like SAML and SSO, right? These single sign-on services have just been a real strong value add for identity access management. And we think that as long as you guys are using this, and we try to promote this all the time, that you guys are going to get real benefit out of that. If you don't have a single sign-on service, taking advantage of 2FA or the multi-factor authentication, I think is so, so important. So I encourage that on every time I talk to customers to make sure they're taking advantage of that. In addition to that, we're also doing things at a network level now that helps with security. The introduction of the perimeter scanning, being able to look from the WAN back into the network and see what ports may be open at the firewall. Being able to look at devices on the inside and if they're making requests for UPnP and bringing attention to you about that. Those are all points that we think helps with this vulnerability aspect of what's going on in your network. And then one thing that we did, and we've always had this feature, but realizing that this is a critical part to doing these security compliance systems, right? Making sure that if a new device gets discovered on a network, that you're aware of it, what it is, right? That classification of that device. I mean, I think that's been an important part of this. And Giancarlo, did you have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, on the security aspect, I definitely agree with you, JP. It's our focus both internally, and I will speak about that, but also externally, which means delivering features that might help our customer, our user, the service provider to, let's say, make sure that the networks that they manage are secure enough. And we added some capability there. We will add more. So stay tuned, because 2022 definitely will see us investing a lot of our resources in that space. In terms of security always goes hand to hand with the reliability of the system. Worth to mention that our SOC 2 compliance, of course, is based on a lot of best practice that we have internally, including how we manage our system. Just to mention, last month we conducted our periodical simulation of disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is nothing to do with security, but with the reliability of the system. And we had in our process like a time of recovery estimated in 1 day based on our simulation. In the past, we did the last test last month in production to simulate the disaster of our production environment, and we moved against another data center with completely transparent to our customers, so nobody noticed that, in less than 3 hours. So it's a huge achievement. I mean, I mentioned that because in June, I mean, nobody is expecting a disaster in the data center in AWS, but in June, a data center in Germany took fire.
Yep. It does.
I was reading on a CNN newspaper 2 months ago, a crazy guy was arrested because he was planning bombing a data center in AWS North Virginia. Really, it's not shocking. Yeah,
keeping on top of that is really, really important. And the one thing that I would always point out, we've got a lot of kudos from different people that have read this, but our security white paper that we created this last year, that's hosted on our webpage under the resources tab. It's 26 pages of goodness about how we implement security, and it gives you ideas about how you should be implementing security as well. So I encourage people to check that out. Features that people expect, right? This to me was fairly important for us as we look at what service provider needs are and how they need to manage the network better. First of all, the thing I'll say around global manage, when you look at Domotz and how it was structured in the past, it really was centered around a particular network. While it was still a multi-tenant platform, people wanted to be able to look across all their sites easily and look at specific device types or specific device models to see status of those. We gave you that ability with the global manage feature, and that really has extended into what we're going to talk about today on the monitoring tables. But before we get to that, taking the network infrastructure and being able to look at what the current network infrastructure configuration is, being able to extract information from the firewalls and the switches that are there, and to be able to save that off, but then also give you comparisons whenever the running configuration or the startup configuration changes. Those are some of the awesome features that we've added, which really people, I think, expect from a network monitoring tool. But then also we know that more and more systems are going cloud-based, right? They're getting managed in the cloud or configured in the cloud. Being able to connect to those types of systems like Unify and Meraki has been on our radar, and we're continuing to expand that and work on that as we go forward. So that's all I'll really say on there. This to me is an important part. Giancarlo spoke about this, but this also, I said it at the beginning, right? Whenever there are feature requests that are out there, we really take those things to heart. And we've done that with a lot of things, like alerting on WAN and LAN changes. So if you have ISP redundancy and the IP address changes, being able to get an alert on that to understand what's going on in the network. But also, we know that everybody works on systems, being able to snooze alerts, right? That's something that we thought was really important, and we ended up adding that pretty easily to our UI, and it's made a big difference, and a lot of people use it. Even the Alert Daily Digest gets used quite a bit out there under the alerts features. The other thing that I think is so valuable, and we've gotten requests for this, but is better reporting. So the thing that I will say, while we can generate reports pretty well and we can do a lot of inventory management, tools like Power BI or Google Data Analytics are so powerful in this industry. The way we've created templates such that you can just put your APIs into those Power BI templates, but then extract information about uptime on rooms as a whole, uptimes on systems is really awesome. You know, Giancarlo, we've gotten requests for that. Do you have any thoughts on some of this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the Power BI integration as well as the Node-RED integration. It's definitely coming from request of our customer. Now they were requesting a way to get all this data that Domotz is generating and putting together, and it has been super powerful. It actually drove basically our development and our effort in building the monitoring dashboard. No, monitoring dashboard. It's not a replacing of a Power BI. It's not a replacing of Node-RED, but it's something that allows our users to do some of the activities that they were doing with Power BI or with Node-RED directly in Domotz. And let me tell you that from the feedback we received so far, it's definitely an easier way for them to represent everything in one place.
Yeah, definitely. You know, along with any system that's a service company, right? People always want it. They want as much as they can get for as little as possible. One of the changes that we made here was we made our billing model a lot simpler. As you guys know, and if you've been with us for a long time, you know we've gone through some changes, but we think we found the right model through a subscription-based model. But in addition to this, we've removed the fees associated with team members, essentially the licensing fees that were associated with that. And we've improved how we do integrations. We've essentially rolled all of our integrations that we have into the single $19 per month plan. I think this was a really good move. Of course, we got a lot of feedback on that as being positive because it does help out. But in essence, it really does simplify the model that we have. And frankly, I'm excited about where we're going. We have added the ability to do a booster pack, but this gives the capabilities and features that people want. More API accesses, also more sensors, more subnet monitoring. The things you would expect to pay more for are actually built into this booster pack. And the way in which you can actually add multiple booster packs to agents is coming, and it really helps with scalability there. So, Giancarlo, did you want to say anything about the additional API endpoints that we've added? Because that's really on our infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the same way we said people want to monitor and consume the data that we produce in their own way through Power BI and Node-RED, we mentioned. There are other users that they want to just extract by scripting or create their own dashboard for their customer. And so we have always relied on RESTful API for our front end. So our front end use our RESTful API. We opened some other public API to allow our user to monitor SNMP, extract data out of the SNMP, monitor the interface, monitor the interface that the Domotz agent relies on for scanning devices, monitor and allow the user to select which interface to monitor. So we have users on virtual machine with access on 10, 20 network interfaces. They want to selectively scan one network, but not the other, and so on. So we added more and more capability in the public API to resolve these requests.
And all of this gets back to some of the more advanced capabilities that we have and what people can do with this stuff. So it's all good. So we've talked a lot about what we've done over the last year. I want to point out that email support@domotz.com for things that you want to see going forward. Like I said, I'm just reiterating this. We take this to heart. We really want to hear what people need. You know, when it comes to hardware integrations with more switches or routers and firewalls. I mean, Giancarlo, I know things like pfSense and Sophos and others are on our roadmaps. So, you know, let us know what you're using so that next year when we do a year in review, we've got even more things to talk about. That being said, I think we need to take a deeper look, right, into what we're doing with data from the operating system and what we're doing from SNMP in general. You know, Giancarlo, do you want to speak to some of these slides here and some of these points?
Absolutely. Actually, I would like to show. Oh, no, I will show later. Yeah, I will show very soon. We will go through another slide very soon, and then I will show what has been achieved by Domotz and users using Domotz so far in terms of collecting data out of operating system. It is Windows operating system, Mac OS, Linux-based, even the VMware servers we are supporting through SSH. We will add more there, and we will see that. Next slide.
Well, Giancarlo, the one thing I want to say about this, right? The thing that I'm excited about this is, you know, we're not out there to replace the RMM tool that traditional service providers are using, right? What we're doing is giving you insight into the devices that are operating on these networks, and you know, what OSs are they running, right? What you know, are there versions of these OSs that may be running that have vulnerabilities on it, right? How can you leverage this information to know that systems are up to date, right? And maybe not putting holes into your network. So you can kind of see by us grabbing a lot of this information how we're out there to help you. Of course, things like the additional information, like the physical and logical disk information that's out there, right? That to me is important, just so you know, hey, this is what the status of these systems are. But I love the fact that we're going to start looking at the applications that are running on these systems, right? What processes are running, and how do you handle that, right? So
the right thing, GB, that we are not aiming to replace traditional RMM system. We are not going to play in the patch management field, okay? But just to give an example, and we spoke about the redundancy of services very recently, but we got a ticket 2 days ago from a customer saying, are you able to monitor your applications and version application? I want to do patch management. We said, we're not going to do patch management. Why you need Domotz? You have an RMM system. They say, yeah, I really have an RMM system. I trust that one, but just to have a redundancy, a way to double check that the patch management system is doing a great work. That's what Domotz is. It's a monitoring tool. It's a monitoring solution for all the system that you deploy. Some RMM tools, they don't even support Linux system, and you might have one or two Linux server in an environment that you still want to, you probably don't want to patch, but you want to monitor. That's where Domotz comes in.
And to me, that's what it's about, right? And we'll show how you can generate reports or put this information in the monitoring tables, and then make those, you know, make those management decisions, if you will, on whether you patch it or not, or how and when you update it. So you wanted me to go to the next slide, and I totally agree, right? SNMP and the things we've done with SNMP, I think, are just awesome, right? The changes that we've made over the year, where we've incorporated, you know, just thousands of MIBs into our database, so that it's much easier to search across. Well, we not only recognize the device that's there, but then being able to say, hey, this device is associated with these MIBs, and then allowing you to kind of type in temperature, CPU, hard disk drive, whatever, so that it pops up the sensors that you need. I think it's just awesome. What do you want to say about this, Giancarlo?
There is, I mean, SNMP is huge. No, it's in the monitoring.
Sometimes it's anything but simple, even though that's what that is.
That's true to be. And we recognize that we are still a little bit far from being like a one-touch system that monitor everything as you start in terms of SNMP, you know. But we are getting there. We are getting there, and I will show you what has been achieved in the last year in terms of SNMP and what's next, what we are going to achieve soon.
Yeah, and that's going to take us into some of the power of the monitoring dashboards, I know. But with that being said, right, I think what we need to do, Giancarlo, is I need to change from my screen over to you. So let me go through this process. So let me find you. I'm going to make you presenter, sir, and then you'll be able to share your dashboard. So you should have control there, Giancarlo.
Oh yeah, I do have, and I think you are now seeing my screen. For whoever is I mean familiar with Domotz, this is what we call the device details, not the details of the device. And one of the things that we mentioned we added recently is the OS monitoring the operating system and information about the operating system. This is an example based on a VMware server. And as you can see here, there is operating system information starting from the family they are in, the version, specific version, build number, on which architecture in this case is an Intel processor, which hosts the VMware server. What's next? We said we are promising that we are going to add more information extracted through basically two way of connecting to the device, to the server, to the PC, laptop. It's through the WinRM, so WMI sort of, or SSH, which is somehow even more powerful, more secure, even on a Windows PC. So we rely on both of them. Of course, on Linux machine, on macOS machine, you only have SSH. What's next there? We are going to extract information about physical hardware, so assets. So information about the CPU, information about the physical disk available on the server. And I think I have here a couple, I don't want to spoil this one. Okay, this is like a MacBook where this is still in testing environment, so this is coming very soon. We have the list of physical disk and logical disk on a MacBook. We have on a Linux machine, this is probably a Raspberry Pi used for Domotz. And or again, on the VMware, we are going to extract soon the physical disk. This is probably coming next week or in a couple of weeks. So very, very powerful. We will add also very soon, probably in a month or something, the application. So the list of application or libraries installed on every server where you can connect to Domotz. Now, why this is important? JB mentioned that security is on one of the top priorities in Domotz, actually top priority for Domotz. But also we want to deliver more information which can be used to make the networks that you care more secure. Through the application, monitoring the application, you will be able to select the libraries which has been affected by a specific CVE. So you will have application and version. You will be able to search easily across all the sites and across all the devices among those sites or those networks, which applications are in use and which are the ones affected by CVE. So this is a very powerful thing that will be added there. And JB, then we spoke also about the SNMP. We had added multiple capabilities to Domotz to allow an easier way to monitor through SNMP devices. In this case, this is a printer machine. I have already configured some we call OED, through SNMP. And for whoever was familiar with Domotz 1 year ago or before, adding OED monitoring into Domotz or understanding if the SNMP was available or not on a specific server or on a specific machine or on a specific printer was not an easy task. Now it's much easier. Under the SNMP, you have specifically information about the status of SNMP on that server. You can change from V1 to V3. We always, in the past, we only supported V2. And then when you add the SNMP sensor, you will be guided to all the available MIPS for that specific machine. We still recognize that this is like the printer. Of course, you have MIPS like in a switch you can monitor temperature. So this is an environmental parameter. You can see all the temperature of the device, and you can easily add to the system. But more importantly, once you have identified your set of SNMP variables, what we have added in the last 12 months is the capability of exporting this configuration in one click. And then, so there is an export of this configuration, including the SNMP parameter, and then import the same configuration in all the other devices through the manage capability. So I can select, in this example, I can select all my Cisco switches, and then through the import of the file that I just exported, I import back all the SNMP. But still, we recognize this is not the optimal. We can do more. And this is what we are going to do in the next few months. We are going to pre-build templates of SNMP. I will show you some screenshots at the end of this presentation, where we can basically suggest you, on this device, there is this MIP, you can monitor this variable, because according to our experience and the experience of our users, these are the relevant ones for you. For instance, we recognize this is a printer, we will suggest you can monitor the tray level of the paper, or you can monitor the ink level of all the colors in the print. We recognize that this is an UPS, we can monitor the battery level and the residual time for life of the device. We recognize there is a certain device which has CPUs. We can monitor the CPU usage of server or a machine. So that's something that we are really adding in the next couple of months. And I will show you some screenshots for that one. And with that, I will give you back the presenting, GB.
Okay. One thing, Giancarlo, as you're giving me back the presentation, the one thing that I've seen from the development team also is when we discover a printer, and I mean, obviously one of the things you want to look at would be the toner or the inkjet levels or possibly the paper. So one of the things that we see there is, I'll let people read this as I say this, but the ability to look at the percentage of ink levels left, the percentage of paper, right, using templates. I think that's going to be a game changer when it comes to how you monitor these systems, because OIDs, again, S in simple network management protocol, right, is sometimes anything but simple. We are trying to make it simple. We're trying to put that S back in there. So
if
awesome
you
stuff.
want, I can show that screenshot. I found it here.
You can show it here when we go back to the dashboards, because really it's the dashboards where people are going to want to see that data anyway, right? Yeah. What I think is so cool about these custom monitoring tables is it really is about giving your dashboard in the way you want it, right? We think that our dashboard is great. You're going to see some changes that we're making to it that makes it even better. But what we are seeing is that people often want to look at very specific things and specific details. And so on this, we're going to show you how this can get utilized. We've gotten some great quotes from customers already once they've played with it and started using it, and I really appreciate it. I mean, the feedback fundamentally is that people are loving what we've done here, and it's helping them get the data that they've been wanting to see into a common dashboard, right into one view. And so that's super exciting. I know some of the changes that we're making as well about how to set these things up are even better. So good stuff there. Couple things that I always like to think about as a product manager certainly are the use cases. Domotz will, take and monitor the network, monitor all these devices in the way that we think works really well. But sometimes you guys want to look at very specific things, and some examples that have come up is looking at devices across all my customers and what versions these things are on. Right, we can extract the version, whether it's through SNMP or through some of our drivers, but being able to bring that to the forefront in a dashboard in one view, I think has so much value. Being able to look across all your sites and see what the current latency is across things. Have things changed? Have there been bottlenecks at the ISP level? Are there bottlenecks within specific devices on a particular network, and how can I see those, right? The internal delays that may be happening. An example would be if you wanted to look at voice over IP phones across all your customers and then sort by their latency or sort by their firmware version or sort by information that you care about, you can do that. And even looking at temperature, right? If you want to be able to see that all of my sites are within range, or if even devices within a given site are within range, you can actually set that up. These are just some of the use cases that have come to us from some of our customers that have started using this today. I think what we should really do is just show it, right? And show some of the things that we've done. So Giancarlo, I know we keep going back and forth, but I'm going to go ahead and give you presentation rights here. Make presenter, and you should be able to take it away from there, sir.
Very good, JB. Thanks a lot. I mean, one thing that the pandemic has teached us is a way to work remotely, you know, and work through webinar, go to webinar and Zoom, listen to everybody saying, "Oh, you're mute," or something like that. Anyway, so going back and forth with the presenter is something that we learned in last year. I want to introduce with the monitoring table just to show some of the use case JB was telling you about. This comes from our customer. So you see blurred some information. This is a way for monitoring, for instance, the operating system or firmware on an HP Aruba system. Some delays, internal delays on the networks across multiple agents. So you don't see here, but this is across multiple sites, across multiple agents. In a similar way, the same user probably was monitoring a NAS, so a list of all the NAS and the firmware version they have there, and even better if there is a disk status of every single NAS and the level of the disk. So in every case, in this case, everything is fine. Or even on the firewall like Sophos or like in Meraki system, the firmware version there, and if there is any count on the number of users, whatever they have. And this is like really, it's open to anybody imagination there, what they want to monitor. In similar way, the monitoring of routers, gateway, and pfSense, again, the version, so they can cross-site check all the version that they have installed in all the sites, which is very powerful. Or even better, on the NAS drive, like, this is like, again, on the switches, again, the firmware version is very important. Now you can check across all your sites, across all the switches, the firmware version. And the final one is monitoring the access point. Now, before going, otherwise I continue to switch.
No, we can continue talking about all these examples, I know.
Yeah. So, now, before going to the dashboard, the monitoring table, we spoke about the SNMP. I want to introduce something that we will be very available soon, is, as I was mentioning, the possibility to suggest pre-configured template onto Domotz. So this is familiar to everybody, the view. It is going to be changed. We will suggest what we want to monitor, starting from the capability of that server or that machine. In this case, it's a printer. And once you configure the pre-configured template, this is the output. So you won't have just a simple number. You will have a percentage of the cartridge level or the color level there. And even more important, and then we jump to the monitoring table and monitoring dashboard. This is a view on all the, let's say, all the switches, for all the switches, about the port of the switch and the traffic recorded on every port of the switch. Cross switches, cross agents, cross customer in this case. So it's very important. This monitoring dashboard that we have introduced, and now I'm going to switch to that one. It's really important for allowing users to.
Giancarlo, one thing that I think people understand this, but you guys are giving them insight into the direction that we're going. It's very important that to point out that as a software company, we're a very agile based company, and we often will, from a product management perspective, we'll look at like the minimum viable product. In this case, we're going to talk about the tables that we need to turn out, but then we're going to continuously add features to those. And you're showing some of the features and capabilities that we have, and a little bit of insight into how we do the development. So I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, JB, on that. So let's go inside the demo of the monitoring dashboard. Many users that have discovered the monitoring dashboard, they have already understand how they work. So you have the capability of adding multiple dashboards to your own company. So this is a webinar new feature. Once you add the monitoring dashboard, you will have a blank screen with the capability of adding a new widget. We call it widget. At the moment, the widget is limited to tables. Spoiler again, we will add more capability to add graphs, comparison table, and more information there. So this is a monitoring table across all the devices. So I want to select all my Cisco, the Cisco that I monitor through all my system. And once I select all the devices, what I can report is some inventory information, like the model is usually very important as well. Okay, in this case, I select the Cisco devices mainly, and then where they are installed, the MAC address, if it is relevant or not. From the network point of view, some delays, so the delay that we measure inside the network, which are usually very, very important. And we talk about one of the use cases really about delays is very important. I will show you that use case. When the device was seen last time, if it was offline or online, and then the very powerful thing here is again SNMP. Again, a way to simplify your life. Again, a way for allowing you to start monitoring and add SNMP on your devices more easily. So let's start. For instance, I want to monitor the sys description across all my sites. I give a name of the monitoring table. This is testing Cisco firmware. And what I have added there is all the information that we have collected. Of course, if the device is offline, there is less information. But what is important here is that if I have the sys description, okay, in this case is a wrong example. Probably let me show you how to add manage column, and in the SNMP it's probably a different one. Let me show you the sys name, for instance. So if I have SNMP capability, I can add that. I can add the system, the SNMP capability to the device. So the status of SNMP, if SNMP is available, of course, in this case is available, I can start adding the name directly from here. And this is exactly the same for all the OEGs that I want to monitor, for all the SNMP parameters that I want to monitor. So as I was mentioning, this is a dashboard. You can add multiple net, multiple table 2, and you can select your devices through let's say advanced filtering. So I want to only select the ones that belong to my dentist. So I think this is the one that goes to Cisco. These are the ones that only belong the Cisco, among all the Cisco, the ones that belong to my corporate. It's a dentist office here. And again, I can monitor the SNMP status or whatever. I'm very flexible here.
So one of the things I noticed, Giancarlo, across the first table, right, you typed the word Cisco, right? And just because you did that generically, it brought in not only switches, but voice over IP phones and anything that had the word Cisco in it, right, anywhere in it. But what you showed us there too is the ability to do the advanced search, that if you want to go and put in very specific models, you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, the other thing that I'll say here, just so people know this, you can take and then add. So let's say you wanted to look at Cisco devices and Apple devices in one table for whatever reason. You can actually do that, right? You can add very specific devices into these tables.
Oh, absolutely. You can do, and you can refine the search as I was showing you with the advanced search. So if I want to add the Apple one, maybe Apple is working better, I can definitely do that, and I can start adding all of them or just some of them and so on. Yep. And one thing I want then to mention is all the capability that you have on the tables. You can move rows around or columns around. You can filter by, okay, I was showing just the Cisco in my Draper office, and you can filter by the name of the agents. If it's Draper, now all the other agents has disappear. You can, of course, sort. And one nice thing about sorting, which is something I would say sort of unique, you have multiple columns that you can select for sorting. So in this case, you have first sorting on device name and second sorting on agent name. You can just click on device name, and the sorting on the device name disappears. Once you have the sorting by agent name, you can add the sorting by device, for instance, by device name, or just add the sorting by RTD rows, which is usually what I really care. No, I want to see the ones that really has the highest RAM, AAA, and so on.
The ability to change the priority of the sorting order, I think is great. I mean, that was something that the added, and I think is super valuable. Are you going to show the filtering capability as well, Giancarlo? Like
you can filter by just, I want to only check, I don't know, the switch, the ones that have the switch in the device name, all this capability, all the filters are here and stored. One information about how the dashboard and tables work. Once you configure the dashboard, it works for the entire team. So if you have team members in your group, they will see the same dashboard, they will see the same devices there. Other capability, you can, of course, I showed you before, you can pin a column, you can pin either on the left, on the left of the table or on the right of the table. Okay, and then when you scroll, those columns will be pinned. You can enlarge and reduce the columns and so on. Very soon we will add more capability. I will show you this at the end of the presentation. A few examples. Now, we talk about use cases. Versioning is something very important. Now, we were talking about the NAS drive, and look at here. I have some 3 NAS monitored across my Domotz agent. 2 of them have no newer version, but one of the Synology NAS drive has a higher level of the DSM, or the operating system. The same can be done, for instance, on the Cisco switches, where we have a firmware version. You can sort by firmware version. In this case, let me remove. Oh, there is no filtering. Oh no, there is a filtering. I remove the filtering here, and I can sort by firmware version. I can easily identify the version of firmware that needs to be upgraded. We talk about delays, and you know that we monitor round-trip delay across all the devices internally to the network, and that's actually what we do internally to the network. We ping from the Domotz agent point of view, basically every single device. We record statistics and we create statistical relevant information there. But I mean, you can add external hosts to your network. You can add Google DNS, for instance, and then you can compare all your region across the monitor of that external. Oh, sorry, the monitor external to that external server. And by monitoring that one, you can see how they behave in the time, and we will add the graph there, or how they perform against each other, your network. In this case, I'm Italian, clearly Italian. I added an Italian newspaper, which I usually use for seeing if I am on the network or not. And I can see the round-trip delay across all my sites. So my sites are in US and UK. I can ping that Italian newspaper and check the round-trip delay there. And with this, JB, I think I give you
one thing that I want to point out, Giancarlo, we got there was a comment that came in about monitoring specific ports on networks, whether it's latency or bandwidth through those or packet drops. We do that from a port statistics perspective. But one thing that's really cool is that within these monitoring tables now, you can take the SNMP values and bring those directly into these tables now, right? So I think that that's just another way in which you can extract information through SNMP within these managed switches, or even in the gateways and firewalls and routers, and bring that data into a dashboard that's makes sense to you, right? It really can be customized to the things you care about. So
I agree. I completely agree.
Good. Well, speaking of more custom things and what you care about, right? This notion of custom plugins, right? I think that people have maybe seen that feature, that capability on the services and drivers tab on their left-hand menu. That is new, by the way, and how we did that, right? Which I love. I think that the team did a great job of giving us more space on the dashboard. But what's interesting about these custom plugins is as we have grown, right? As Domotz has gotten more and more relevance in these markets that we're in, we see people asking for more and more integrations into very specific devices, specific hardware. We are very, very focused on network infrastructure, power distribution units that are out there, and we do a lot of the development for those because it really integrates into our user interface. But we did see that a lot of people want to get more information from the devices than what is relevant to our dashboard. The team created this notion of custom plugins. We often call them custom drivers as well. We recognize that not all IoT devices, right, not all of these network-based systems, they're not created equal. They have different standards, different manufacturers will have different protocols. But one thing is true about systems today is more and more manufacturers of products are creating RESTful APIs. They're creating, some of them are using SNMP, but they're creating these column protocols that allow visibility into those systems to get more information. Whether that is for control of things, or if it's interrogating and system reporting aspects, those things are they're being enabled. We wanted to allow you as a service provider, you as an integrator that are dealing with these systems, get more and more data from those and bring them into the dashboard. So we've started to release this, and it is beta. I definitely want to point that out. But we have released this solution into the market so that you guys can start to write JavaScript against these devices to be able to interrogate these. Some use cases that we see, and some of these are suggestions, some of these are things that we've implemented, but doing things like database monitoring, getting more insights into what's in that data and bringing that into a dashboard. Right? Being able to report on servers, right? Whether it's users that are getting into the system, right? Or being able to check the status of given processes that are running in these systems. I think of things like digital signage, right? We see more and more digital signage coming up into these systems that you need to monitor, but being able to look and interrogate the display, able to interrogate the video playback system and know what's going on with that are just some examples that we have. Even in the building management side of things, right? Looking at lighting systems, looking at HVAC, right? Those are all great things. One thing, Giancarlo, that you and I have talked about as well, being able to essentially within a driver to kick off a report that gets created, right? And generate a report based off of a certain status or at the touch of a button, right? These are all just some cool things that we see coming. And by implementing JavaScript into this, we have a lot of power in that. And Giancarlo, can you think of other use cases that we didn't talk about here? I know that a lot of people.
Absolutely. I mean, there is this big customer of ours. It's a chain of burger spaces, so fast food. And what they care is their fridge, not the refrigerator. So they really care about the temperature of the refrigerator. So until a few months ago, what Domotz was able to do is monitoring this and get statistics about the temperature through SNMP. But the fridge is not SNMP relying on SNMP. They have their own protocol for interacting on the network. And so what they did, they built this SNMP server on a small Raspberry Pi, connecting to the fridge, getting the temperature, exposing to Domotz, and putting into the Domotz dashboard, putting alerts on that one. What they can do now, it's really connected actually to the fridge. And now I'm thinking about that because yesterday night I just discovered my fridge is Wi-Fi connected. I didn't know, but I was thinking my Wi-Fi signal very low, and this signal level called fridge was very high. It's a Samsung fridge. I connected my Samsung fridge to my network, and now I'm playing with Domotz custom API, custom plugin to extract the temperature, but also to control the temperature, control where I can create ice or not. So it's huge. I mean, again, the imagination is the limitation here. Okay.
Well,
and of course, what we have implemented so far, it's a little bit of limitation. Sorry for that.
Yeah. And it's funny, on the next slide, Giancarlo, right, I point this out, right? It is beta, right? We have it as beta. We flagged it as beta. The reason that we chose to release it, aside from the fact of what I said before, right, we're a very agile-based company. We want to get your feedback, right? This is something new. It's something innovative that I don't think other monitoring platforms like us have done. It's pretty darn simple in the sense that if you are a developer and you understand JavaScript, I think you'll find that it's pretty easy to use, but we want to hear from you about the things that we're doing. So that being said, Giancarlo, is it okay if I, again, change over presentation? Okay, let me find you here. Okay, there you go, sir. Right there, you should have it.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, JB. You seeing my dashboard again?
We do.
Okay, so where to start? If you go to the service and driver, this, of course, you land on the service side. It shows all the amazing tool or third-party tool we integrate to. It doesn't show all the hardware we integrate to, because otherwise this page would be long.
It's like 500 plus or something now. It's crazy.
Probably. Yeah, that's crazy. But at least it gives space to start working on the custom driver. So you start on the custom driver to create your own custom driver. As I was mentioning, it's not really user-friendly at the moment, but the end result is basically once you write your code, is a code that you can associate to your own devices. It's a code that is based on two main functions. And JB, I don't know if you mentioned that we will have a training about the custom plugin probably in December. So when
Yes.
this will be out of beta, we will add more functionality here. We will also train our user base to do that. So there are basically two functions. One function is called validate, which allows the user to, let's say, through the code, certify that the specific device is compliant to this driver. So the driver is able to read and act on that device. So in the case of my fridge, I will call an API that calls, okay, give me the name of the firmware version. If the firmware version match with what I want, yeah, I'm fine. I can use that one. In this case, this is an HVAC system. I can control the temperature through multiple sensor and multiple actuator in the system. I do that validate through means of, okay, if there is a specific variable in the system, I'm fine. And then there is the get status. The get status basically is the one that is triggered periodically that retrieves information, variable, out of the device. I will show you the result of this code, which is pretty simple. I mean, you will see here the validate is small and the other sub-function are very small. I will show you the result here. I want to talk about what's next here. Apart from making a software which is, I mean, easier to write, easier to interact with, some functions are still, we still need to work on some function. For instance, JP mentioned about the PDU, power distribution unit. We want to give you the capability of controlling the system that you are interacting to. Now, at the moment, we are only extracting variables. So what we want to put is like a customized button that you see in Domotz, and you can send commands to your device. And that's something that we want to implement. Moreover, we want to implement more and more supported protocol. At the moment, the supported protocol is just HTTP. We will soon add Telnet, SSH, generic TCP connection, SNMP, Bonjour, and all the other protocols that we are very capable of working with through the means of our Domotz agent. Anyway, short story, let's jump into the results of a function like that. This is definitely not the result. So once I get a device and I connect that device to my custom driver or custom plugin, I can select the frequency or the sample period with which I want to read. Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course.
Something went wrong, Giancarlo, as with all.
Something went wrong. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And once you collect all the information, the nice thing that is that you have a history of information through the time. Okay, this is definitely did not change too much. I hope this is probably going to change a little bit more. Yeah, there is some changes here in the past. That's basically what the custom driver is. It's a way to allow you to monitor whatever you want once you know how to extract information out of those devices, and also next step to control those devices through the means of simple buttons in the Domotz GUI, basically.
I mean, from my perspective, Giancarlo, I mean, the simple thing of being able to hit a button and then run some script in the background that generates a report or aggregates data or pushes information to another platform, right? Kind of similar to what we do with webhooks and whatnot, I think is really, really awesome. You know, I gave the example of digital signage, and I think that digital signage is interesting because a lot of times you want to make sure that the display is on, but if somebody says it's not working, being able to interrogate this system and see, okay, is it on the right input? Is the volume level right where you expect it? Being able to report on that, I think is really useful. And then of course we absolutely can talk all day long about, you know, hard disk drives, right? And databases and servers that are out there that you may need to monitor in the cloud. Right? There's just lots and lots of power that comes with this type of scripting. So, okay, let's talk in the last little bit of time that we have about what's coming, right? We've said this before: faster navigation, faster response time. You know, I know we want to improve the monitoring dashboards. You may be able to speak, Giancarlo. Are you going to be able to show some of this, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I will. Okay. I will
okay,
show.
cool.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about how we're improving the monitoring dashboards that we just got to look at. So we've indicated some of that already, but also I love this idea of pre-configured SNMP template. And Giancarlo showed how you can actually see graphs, right? In that, that's going to be cool. I I'm actually going to jump across the network interfaces and say one of the most important things that I think I'm excited about, probably coming in the first part of next year, is this notion of the inventory dashboards that we have. I mean, today, everything that we do is really on a per site basis. We call it an agent, right, where it's looking at a customer system or one or more specific networks within that site. But what we're going to see is the ability to, I use the word pivot here, pivot across those sites, across your customers and across all the devices, and being able to change how you look at these systems holistically. I think with that, Giancarlo, if you want to show some things, I'm going to transition this back to you. And
yes,
I'm seeing how well we can change back and forth presentation mode, you know? So,
yeah.
So there you go, sir.
Thanks again. So we show already, you know, in our future what's going to look like the SNMP monitoring, you know, the way to implement pre-configured template, which, by the way, we will add a ton of pre-configured templates on ourselves. We expect input from our users in the same way our users have provided us with needs. We expect input also on the templates, no, for SNMP monitoring. In our roadmap, there will be also a place where we can share needs or share pre-configured templates among different teams and so on. So we show that one. I want to really jump into the future of the monitoring table because that's very cool, and that's something that is, of course, a lot of people, a lot of users are using these days, and it's like coming soon. So this is a monitoring dashboard, very simple one, multiple table in the same way we are used to see on your own dashboard. A few users has asked a few things. I mean, as you see, this is limited. I mean, there are multiple devices here selected and multiple columns here selected. Oh, I want to make this on a bigger dashboard. So that's something that we have added. I mean, a way to resize the dashboard is something that is coming very soon. So not available yet in production, will be soon. But more importantly, I want to make the dashboard so that somebody can look at that and have multiple tables, one after the other. And, oh, sorry, I have to resize this one. Yeah, this is, as I was mentioning, this is something that we are developing right now. And here you go. This is something that we really want to deliver soon. And then we mentioned other capability like resizing the column. You can resize the column, but if you resize the column, you lose the name of the column, and there will be a tooltip about the column. There will be a tooltip about the status of the device as well. In this case, this is a legend offline, so it will be much more helpful in analyzing the situation there.
And Giancarlo, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of the next, or this is like the next step that we have in our process, but then being able to bring in other widgets that would maybe show things like pie charts or graphs that, you know, will represent the data that you care about in a graphical way, right? A form.
Absolutely. That's a true statement, JB. It's something that we want to add there for sure. So the widget is general something. It might be a table, which is what we have right now. It might be, which is currently it's a table of devices, no? So there will be a table of variables. In this case, it's a variable about all the interfaces out of the switches or devices in general, no? So port 1, port 2, port 3, or whatever. It's funny that we have only 3 ports on a switch, but this is just a mock-up. Excuse for that one. So that's definitely something that we want to add. The table for variables, and then widget on the graphs, widget for historical value, a widget like the pie chart, distribution about devices which are online or offline, or the availability or the uptime of agents, whatever. I mean, as I was mentioning, the imagination is really the limit here. GB, it's really after the 1 hour, but I want to take the chance to show to the remaining attendees what's really next. It's a little bit longer in the roadmap. It's probably in 3 months something. It's where we are. Yeah, it's our end goal. No, I mean, Domotz is a way to explore network. Currently, we explore network in parallel, but you read the information, let's say, or vertically into the agent and then the device, and then within the device, the SNMP value. Through the monitoring table, we are bringing this information in an horizontal way, no? A way to globally monitor all your sites, all your devices, all the SNMP parameters across all your sites, no? But we want to bring that into the life and to be available to everybody, starting from the first day. So we are going to restructure the dashboard that you see today into a way of accessing data in more, let's say, flat way, but it's basically a way to accessing faster data. So this will be an overview of what the agent view will look like. So there will be a customer view where it's an aggregation of multiple agents or multiple sites. There will be an agent view where you have your network performance. You can filter by network performance and then jump into the overview and see the same filtering that you previously performed in the network performance and so on. But very, very similar. You will be able to manage, okay, this is just another example of the overview, another example where you switch content there. But you, in the same way, you will also able to manage multiple devices across all your agents. So it's very similar. The concept is very similar to the monitoring dashboard, the monitoring table. It's just pre-configured for everybody. Choose basically access to all the devices, all the entities within the devices. You see small graphs about the round trip delay, which shows basically the worst, best, and the latest value. We will add more capability there. So in this case, we have power management, so you can control the power directly from the first view. So you access into Domotz, you can control the power directly in the first view.
And I know, Giancarlo, that there are several integrators that are looking at that saying, thank you. So I do want to point out that everything that you're showing here is still early.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love the direction that we're going, but I want to put this out to the audience, the people that are listening to this webinar, whether it's live or you're listening to it later. Send us feedback. Send us information on the things that you'd like to see in these dashboards, because we take that to heart and we look at this. But I really like the direction that our user experience team is taking this, and it's going to be really, really nice for us. So
yeah.
That being said, I think, did you give me presentation rights again, Giancarlo?
I will soon.
Okay, you're going to show us more. I like it.
No, I don't know. I just want to show you. Sorry. That's the one.
So we are a little over. I knew we would go over because we had a lot of information to give, and I wanted to make sure that people saw not only what we have developed and the changes that we've made, so everybody's aware of that, but also give you insight into these monitoring tables, a little bit of an overview of how to use those, how to think about those. And then I wanted to also make sure that you saw that custom plugin. Giancarlo was right, and I want to mention this. We are going to have a technical webinar on the custom plugins, much more detail. We'll have our engineering team up here talking about how to use it, how to get the benefits of it, and we'll walk through some examples and even with some code that you can take away. That being said, Giancarlo, I know while I was talking, you were looking at some of the questions, and I know that I was doing the same while you were talking. One of the questions that we got was really around the custom plugins, which I think is a good one, which is, okay, this is great. Are you guys going to have a library of custom plugins that we can pull from, or examples? And I feel like from a product manager perspective saying, yes, right, we want to do that. That's where we want to get to in the end, right? We want to make this a community type of place where people can develop that. What's your thoughts on that, Giancarlo?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's initially there will be some example. So the example is the right word. Some example of custom plugin where you can start taking like how to use the function, how to use the code. There will be a much richer documentation on how to write the code on your own. As I showed, I mean, there were like 20 rows of code to extract all those temperatures out of an HVAC system. So it will be relatively easy. But we recognize how complex a system might be, and what we want to achieve, and the goal is to have a repository with example or shared plugins distributed by partners. So there will be developers developers that don't want to share their work. I mean, GitHub is full of open source code where people are putting their effort and they're adding that one. So there will be definitely something like that in Domotz as well.
Yeah, that's good. You know, another question that came up, and I think it gets back to the monitoring dashboards, but can you show important offline devices that are in a client system in the dashboard? So
let me tell you, there is a way right now. So there is a filtering where you select devices, important devices. You can filter by important, you can filter by offline. The issue which is going to be resolved next Wednesday, so very soon, is if you select offline device, okay, and then all of a sudden in that table there will be no offline devices, then the filter will go away. And then next time you visit the dashboard, you have no filter anymore. So this is something that is going to be fixed very soon, Wednesday. And so you will have capability to select all the important device and then filter only the offline. And the table will be always empty until there will be an offline device showing there.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's really good. We did get another question on something that we actually didn't talk about today. And, you know, I'm going to say shame on us, Giancarlo, for not focusing on this, but it had to do with the topology map, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was, are we going to, you know, today when we have proprietary ways of leveraging RFC protocols and understanding parent-child relationships to show the topology map. But there was a question about, are we going to be improving the way in which we draw out that topology and really do what I would consider to be layer 3 discovery of devices?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's in our roadmap to leverage more and more LLDP and CDP protocol, which are the standard for a topology based on L3. Don't get me wrong; it's not only it's not the only standard. Unfortunately, tools based on only on LLDP and CDP, they fail in building the topology in the way Domotz does, which is based on RFC 4188, which is a different standard. So we will add that capability. And one more thing to add. Currently, you cannot edit the dashboard. You cannot, the topology map. You cannot move stuff around because it's, as you mentioned, we have a proprietary software algorithm that builds the topology starting from some few information. We collect information just from the switches, and we are able to rebuild the topology. And that's why we don't want to allow changing, moving stuff around, but we will find a way to allow that. So those are the two areas where we are investing in terms of topology map.
Yeah, we've also, you know, we've talked in the past, and I think we still want to try to do this, but figure out how we can showcase, you know, VLANs and subnets across these maps. And we still want to do a lot with respect to topology.
Absolutely. And one thing we just mentioned that we recently added in the public API a way to discover which are the network interfaces, including the VLAN or the routed subnet that you have added to your Domotz agent. It's only available to the public API. It's something that we want to show in the UI soon, and then starting from there, mark which device is discovered through which interface, virtual interface, software layer 3 routed network. Absolutely.
Giancarlo, another question here is really around improvements of monitoring corporate networks, right? Corporate systems. Do you have any thoughts on where we go? I mean, as you know, right, our primary VLAN is limited to a /22. Of course, we can add more VLANs and more subnets to monitor beyond that. But do we see improvements coming with that you want to speak to?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that, JB. It's we did a proof of concept for scanning a /16 network back in July, and we were aiming to open the beta for scanning a /16 in October. We're a little bit late, not for that matter, because the proof of concept is working. We just need to productize as we do for the rest of functionality. We just get some other priorities in the pipeline. We are still aiming to add the capability of scanning as /16 by the end of the year.
Yeah, good. I'm excited to hear that. That's going to be good stuff. I know we get requests on that as well. So, Giancarlo, we are at the 75-minute mark, which I think I just want to cut it off there. We still have questions that are coming in. We will extract those questions, and our team will get back to you guys on that. I really appreciate everybody joining us today. Thank you for your time. As I mentioned, if you've got comments, feedback, questions, whatever it may be, send it to support@domotz.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.